The following is an excerpt from the audiobook, The Madhouse Effect: How Climate Change Denial is Threatening Our Planet, Destroying Our Politics, and Driving Us Crazy, by Michael E. Mann and Tom Tolles. The Madhouse Effect is published by Wetware Media. For more information about Wetware Media, and to browse our other audio titles, please visit wetwaremedia.com. That's wetwaremedia.com. The full audiobook is available from any major online audiobook retailer. Preface: Why we wrote this book. What would bring a pointy-headed, lab coat-wearing, left-brained scientist and a laid-back, artistic, right-brained editorial cartoonist satirist to collaborate on a book? The answer is simple: climate change. The warming of the planet caused by our profligate burning of fossil fuels poses perhaps the greatest challenge that human civilization has yet faced. But thus far, we have not met the challenge. We have failed to engage in the actions necessary to prevent dangerous and possibly irreversible changes in our climate. Why? It's not as if the science isn't compelling. It is. It's not as if the threat isn't clear. It is. It's not as if many smart, informed, and concerned individuals haven't sought to bring attention to this crisis. They have. It isn't even that the overwhelming majority of citizens don't recognize the urgency of acting on the problem. They do. So how is it that we have arrived in a madhouse atmosphere where politicians are able to do the bidding of powerful fossil fuel interests while ignoring the long-term good of the people they are supposed to represent? Both of us have asked ourselves this question many times. A scientist tries to understand the way the world works. An editorial cartoonist tries to show the ways it doesn't. These jobs exist in happy parallel universes until something very unusual happens to bring them together. In this case, that something unusual is the outrageous distortion of science in public policy. The distortion, denial, and confusion in the public policy response to climate change has been nothing short of a madhouse. The challenge has been, and still is, to figure out where we are and find the way out. And this is where the scientist and the cartoonist meet. The scientist tries to understand what the facts and implications are. The cartoonist reads about the growing dangers and tries to vividly illustrate them. Each of us, in his own way, is passionate about communicating the urgency of the problem. Mike, through public lectures, media interviews, and the university courses that he teaches, and Tom through his famous editorial cartoons and blogs in the Washington Post, which have used humor and satire to highlight this issue for millions of readers. It occurred to both of us that conventional approaches are not succeeding, at least not quickly enough to avert a catastrophe. Perhaps we need to talk and think about the problem in a different way. Maybe, we thought, we need to combine our left brains and our right brains, use both our cerebral cortices and our hearts. And thus was born this collaboration between an editorial cartoonist known for his biting socio-political commentary and a climate researcher known largely for his scientific work. Despite our very different vocations, both of us are committed to informing the public discourse over what is arguably the greatest challenge yet faced by human civilization: the challenge to avert catastrophic interference with Earth's climate. There is a fire in the house, almost a literal one. But even as the evidence becomes unmistakable, and even though the alarm has been sounded several times, public policy has been paralyzed, sometimes from ignorance, sometimes from uncertainty, but often from a campaign of deliberate misinformation. This is the madhouse of the climate debate. We have followed Alice through the looking glass. White roses here are painted red, and words suddenly mean something different from what they used to mean. The very language of science itself, of skepticism and evidence, is used in a way opposite of how science really employs it. Not everyone wants the facts to be known. We have run squarely into what Upton Sinclair famously warned us about. It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. And there are many powerful interests whose salary has very much depended on the public not understanding climate science. And so the battle continues to get the world to recognize the possibly permanent damage we are doing to Earth, to ourselves, and to every ecosystem. The fight to preserve the forests, lakes, mountains, even oceans of the only planet we have is not like other battles. This one will not be ending. Time is no longer on our side. Time will not be healing wounds, but instead will be inflicting more and more of them if we don't stop shambling around like confused zombies. In this audiobook, we talk about the basic science underlying climate change, of course, because frankly, you can't solve a problem if you don't understand what it is in the first place. But first, we talk about science itself, because you have to know what it is before you can understand what it is not. In the debate over climate change, pseudoscience or anti-science is too often allowed to masquerade as science, and denialism is allowed to pose as skepticism. The media too often throw up their collective hands and say, "We can't tell the difference." So we get the problem of false balance, wherein industry propaganda too often is given an equal place on the media stage with actual science when it comes to the issue of climate change. And the rest of us pay the price in the form of a skewed public discourse. This is a problem that one of us has explored in his cartoons, and the other has discussed in his previous writings, and we explore it together in depth in this audiobook. The basic facts are now clear and essentially beyond dispute. It is time to put out the fire. From presidents to prime ministers to the Pope, people are finally waking up to the reality and the challenge. We have seen glimpses of this new awakening in the record crowds that have marched through the streets of New York City and in cities around the world, demanding climate action. In the unprecedented commitments made by the nations of the world to reduce their carbon emissions at the historic Paris Climate Summit in 2015. But every time in the past that we have started to realize we needed to act, the purveyors of confusion and denial have stepped in to slow us down and lead us astray. This time, we need to stay the course and get it right. We are out of extra chances. We explore the reasons why we all should care about climate change, and we draw attention to the absurd efforts by special interests and partisan political figures to confuse the public, attack the science and the scientists themselves, and deny that a problem even exists. Despite the late hour and the monumental challenge, we believe there is still time and still hope. In the end, we hope that our listeners will learn something, be entertained and outraged, but also be inspired and motivated. Make no mistake about it, we control our own destiny, and we are poised on a precipice. If we continue with the course we are on, our destiny may indeed be to leave behind an unlivable planet of destroyed ecosystems and continuous, unpredictable chaos. But there is another potential future that lies ahead, a future where we embrace the goal of a sustainable planetary existence and take the steps now to ensure that we preserve the health of our planet for generations to come. It is truly up to us. It is time, finally, to escape the madhouse. Thanks for listening to this excerpt from the audiobook, The Madhouse Effect: How Climate Change Denial is Threatening Our Planet, Destroying Our Politics, and Driving Us Crazy, by Michael E. Mann and Tom Tolles. The full audiobook is available from any major online audiobook retailer.